Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4. Wait, that's 40 or 41? That's episode 40, right? Wait, what number are we on? I don't know. I got a message. I gotta close Facebook on my laptop. Whoopsie daisies, my bad. My bad, y'all. Unprofessional podcaster here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bookish Babbles, the podcast where we reread our favorite books and chat about them. I'm your host, Alyson, and without further ado, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 41 of Bookish Babbles. Woo! Today, we're talking about chapters 13 to 15 of Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. I need time to slow down or something because we are racing toward the end, and I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for the emotional damage. I'm sorry to everyone listening for it. But so I mentioned, I think I mentioned last week, I was reading A Man Called Ove, and I finished reading it, and I saw the movie with Sarah. It was so good. I cried. I loved it. Also, I have a few critiques, but whatever. We don't have to get into that right now. It was really good. And also, a reminder that I did guest star on Those Forking Fangirls, which is so freaking exciting. That episode is up on YouTube and pretty much anywhere you can listen to your podcast. Again, it's called Those Forking Fangirls. I'll actually link to the episode on YouTube. In the show notes, you can see my ugly face on screen for the first time, because even though I do upload my episodes to YouTube, they're never in video format. I'm too lazy to put in the effort to make myself look good for the camera, as you will clearly see if you watch Those Forking Fangirls. But anyway, it was really fun to record that, and it was really amazing to meet Christine and Natasha. They're both wonderful. You should obviously follow them. You should also read Christine's books because she's a writer and she's an author, and I enjoy her stuff. They're fun good time rom-com-y type books. I'm doing a great job selling the book. I can already tell. Anyway, don't mind me. I'm just in my usual chaos mode while recording. And also sorry to Christine and Natasha who had to deal with me in chaos mode for the episode. Hope I made it fun. But anyway, speaking of YouTube, another thing I decided to do is I randomly at the last minute, just one day, recorded myself just on my phone in my car, just singing The Hanging Tree, and then filmed a bunch of trees in my town and decided to somehow make a music video out of that. So that's on YouTube if you want to see it. The best part in that video is a bird, and that's all I'll say on that matter. So yeah, I'll link my cover of The Hanging Tree that I made below. Yeah, it's below on YouTube, show notes for podcasts. I don't know what I'm saying anymore, guys. I just have a lot going on. Of course, I have work tomorrow. I'm still adjusting to my new work schedule, because back when I was working for like the sales outreach department at work, for those who don't know, I work for a solar company. My work weeks were Tuesday to Saturday, and I did that for like 4.5 months or whatever, and now I got switched over to be project concierge working in the office. So now I work the standard Monday to Friday, like 9 to 5 schedule. Well, technically 8:30 to 5, because I have to be in the office at 8:30, which is the hardest part. And also now adjusting to the fact that I no longer have Mondays off. I'm like, oh shit, because in my head I'm thinking, oh, I have tomorrow off. No, I don't. You dummy. So yeah, that's been interesting. I'm trying to adjust to what most people do now again. Whoops. But it's also nice because my friend Sam, she also has a different work schedule where she works Sundays to Thursdays. So before, when I was working in the other department, we never had any like common days off, basically. Now we at least have Saturdays in common. off all the time, so woohoo! And thankfully my benefits transferred over to this department. Those didn't restart, so yay! I can build up more paid time off. Oh, speaking of that, I need to buy my bus ticket for New York because I'm seeing Phantom of the Opera in New York in a couple weeks before they close. What's today? Today's the 22nd of January. Yeah, so I'm seeing it February 8th. I'm just randomly took that day off from work. Oh yeah, little life update for you guys that no one asked for, but it'll be good for me in the future, I think. If I ever listen back on episodes, I can be like, oh yeah, that's what I was doing when I was recording this episode. Still sound chaotic as ever. And my hair is also a mess, but that's okay. That's why I just do my podcast for audios. That way you don't have to see what a mess I am physically. Anyway, I should dive into the content. What am I reading right now? So I did mention I finished reading A Man Called Ove. Oh, I'm currently reading What Lies in the Woods by, what's her name? I'm staring at the dust jacket from a distance. I can't read her name. It's fine. I'm too lazy to get up, but it's really good. I'm supposed to be reading a different book for my book club, but I'm aggressively not in the mood for the book. So I think I'm just going to show up at book club and be like, hey guys, what happened in the book? I don't care or no. I didn't read the book, guys, because I'm just aggressively not in the mood for this book. And I don't want to force myself too hard to read it if I don't have to. Okay. So yeah, let's just dive into Mockingjay. So, last time when we were talking about the other 3 previous chapters, 13 survives a bomb attack. Katniss figures out how Snow is using Peeta against her, and she can no longer function as the Mockingjay with this knowledge. 13 rescues Peeta, Annie, and Joanna from the Capitol, and then it ends with Peeta attacking Katniss, but yay! So this week, we learn more about Peeta's mental state and, what hijacking is exactly. Katniss goes to District 2 to help with the fight. And Gale comes with a deadly plan to win the district. Yay. And he'll set off about 1 million red flags in this episode. So with that being said, let's dive into Chapter 13. Okay, so we do have a brief time jump from where we left off, which I'm glad that the book doesn't make us experience a hijacked Peeta trying to choke the life out of Katniss in real time, like the movie does. I've been known to look away from the screen at that part in the movie because it's hard to watch. So anyway, Katniss is currently in the hospital and has to wear some kind of neck brace thing since her throat is obviously bruised from being strangled. The good news is she'll get her voice back. The bad news, she's naturally going a little bit crazy right now, as anyone would if the love of your life, suddenly tried to kill you. She's also not allowed to talk at the moment. Can't even thank Boggs, who was the one that got Peeta off her. And good thing he was nearby, since both Katniss and Haymitch had been horribly caught off guard, which is pretty rare. 2 victors being caught off guard at the same time. Don't see that every day. Prim is also there for Katniss. Apparently their mother is in the middle of assisting with a complicated surgery and hasn't yet been informed about Peeta's attack on Katniss, which just really drives home what Mrs. Everdeen said earlier in the book about how no one ever runs anything by her. Is there seriously not anyone else in the hospital who can take her place in the surgery? I know Mrs. Everdeen isn't Mother of the Year, but I think she'd want to see her daughter after being attacked like that, as soon as possible. Not sure if this should count as a District 13 red flag, but I'm counting it anyway. It's fine. Well, at least then, Katniss gets to take the neck brace off, so that's good. Because it sounds uncomfortable to wear. Anyway, so Plutarch, Haymitch, and Beatty come in. They had been in the hallway waiting for doctors to let them in. Gale's notably not there. I know it's probably because no one's told him yet, but still. Actually, wasn't he in the hospital, not too far away when she was attacked? Because Katniss walked by him on her way to see Peeta. He was busy getting stitched up. How could he not know? I feel like something like that, Peeta attacking Katniss, the Mockingjay, that kind of news would spread like wildfire. Okay, I'm good. That's a ding on the Gale red flag counter. What the fuck? Although Prim does get a pretty good moment here. Plutarch tries to tell her to go, but she insists on staying, even threatens to go straight to her mother while she's still working on the surgery. And Prim says, and I quote, that her mother doesn't think much of a game maker calling the shots on Katniss's life, especially when you've taken such poor care of her. Applause. And Plutarch also has the audacity to look offended. Luckily listens to Haymitch when he tells him to, just let it go. Haymitch is also low-key so proud of Prim and probably would have eventually adopted her the way he adopted Peeta and Katniss had things, worked out differently in the end. So anyway, we get some explanation on hijacking and what exactly they did to Peeta. So Beatty's the most knowledgeable because, it's Beatty and it's what he does. But even he doesn't know all the ins and outs on how hijacking works because I guess the Capitol is very protective of that knowledge. But basically, it's a very intense fear conditioning using tracker jacker. Take two. Using tracker jacker venom to do so. The stuff that Katniss got stung with in her first games that knocked her out for a couple days and gave her nightmarish hallucinations, even caused her some mental confusion in the aftermath to the point where she wasn't sure if Peeta had saved her life when, he ran toward her being like, hey, get the fuck out of here before Cato gets here. And he did. That actually happened. We know that now. And to think, that was a result of Katniss being stung only a few times. Like, the Capitol tortures Peeta using the venom who knows how many times. Like, I can only imagine how insanely confusing reality is for him right now. So they're pretty sure that when they infused Peeta with the venom and made him very afraid, they used it to alter his memories of Katniss, make her seem life-threatening, hence why he tried to kill her. Then Prim asks if there's any way they can reverse it, but there's no record on that, of course. But Plutarch remains optimistic because that's what he does, apparently. I don't know why, but I feel a bit more annoyed with Plutarch in the book than I did when watching the movie. I don't know, maybe because we're experiencing these things filtered through Katniss's eyes, or maybe it's entirely because of Philip Seymour Hoffman. Like, it's another Effie Trinket case where the movie and the actor make me like the character way more than the book ever did. Anyway, so Haymitch isn't as optimistic. He thinks Peeta will get better, but won't be the same. And if that isn't the definition of living with PTSD, I don't know what is. I also think it's harder for Haymitch and Katniss to be optimistic. One, because of just who they are as people, and because they love Peeta. The more they let themselves hope, the worse it will be for them if it all goes horribly wrong. So it's a defense mechanism for them, I think, in this moment. And the most positive thing that Plutarch can say in the moment is that, hey, at least Peeta's alive, so we've achieved the bare minimum. Woohoo. And Plutarch then manages to bring the mood down even more when he tells us that Portia and Peeta's prep team had been executed on live television, which is just so fucked up. Like, because Portia never did anything wrong. Like, I can't even explain why this one bothers me so much, because, the Capitol already does horrible, horrible shit, but something about Peeta's prep team and Portia getting executed, I don't know, maybe because it feels like it goes against everything that's been established. I don't know. But they didn't know anything. Portia never did anything wrong. I doubt she or the team knew any rebel secrets. I can't see Cinna risking them like that, but they still end up dead. Fucks no. Also, this information causes Katniss to spiral and feel overwhelmingly guilty and she starts having a panic attack so bad that they have to sedate her. So maybe that wasn't the best time to tell her the news, Plutarch. Anyway, so Katniss spends the next 3 days in the hospital not wanting to say or do anything, which turns her into a model patient since she's not allowed to speak at all during that time. And being left with nothing but her thoughts, Katniss's desire to kill Snow only grows stronger. We're also given updates on Peeta's condition. The high levels of Tracker venom are getting out of his system, so yay, improvement. There's a whole medical team working on his recovery. Also, I may have jumped the gun insulting Gale earlier, but whatever, I'm not taking it out of the episode. Apparently, the actual reason that he hasn't visited Katniss in the hospital yet since the attack was because he just wasn't allowed to visit her, because he is also in the hospital, confined to bed with a shoulder wound. I'm still not taking the ding off the Gale red flag counter. He could demand to have his bed rolled into her room. He wouldn't leave bed. Though to his credit, he does sneak in on the third night, but it's still too long if you ask me. He doesn't say anything to her. Then again, what can you say to her in this situation? He just touches her bruises and kisses her on the forehead. Whatever. The next morning, Katniss is discharged and given instructions to move quietly and speak only when necessary. She isn't even given a schedule. She's just left to wander around until Prim gets off her shift at the hospital and shows Katniss to their new compartment. The Everdeens really do move a lot. Buttercup isn't happy about the move since he can no longer go outside since they don't have a window anymore. And he now has a litter box out of the bathroom sink. And he continues being petty toward Katniss and is trying to steal Prim's attention by planting himself on Katniss's pillow. Doesn't exactly work. Prim reassures Katniss by telling her that, she's sure that the Peeta who still loves Katniss is in there somewhere. And there's this really sweet passage on page 184. I look at my little sister and think how she has inherited the best qualities of our family has to offer. My mother's healing hands, my father's level head, and my fight. There's something else there as well, something entirely her own. An ability to look into the confusing mess of life and see things for what they are. Is it possible she could be right, that Peeta could return to me? This just makes what happened to Prim at the end of the book even sadder. God damn it, Suzanne. You really are buttering us up for the tragedy. I see what you're doing. Because Prim is just beginning to come into her own. Like, she's not the person we met back in book 1. Then again, no one is. But she's getting more emotionally mature here. And she can be there for Katniss more. And she has potential to become a freaking doctor. Fuck you, Coin. Anyway. So Prim has to head back to the hospital, leaving Katniss and Buttercup alone, and that lasts about 30 seconds before Katniss leaves the room, wanders, gets lost a couple times. Eventually, she finds her way down to Special Defenses, and Gale's there with Beetee, and they're completely immersed in whatever idea they're working on. She's not too surprised to see them down there because she assumes that the two of them are down there designing weapons like guns and, fancy bows and arrows. But no, it's so much worse. They're taking Gale's traps that he uses for hunting animals and adapting them to work on humans and, And right there, big red flag for me. Warning. Someone schmister will end up dead because of this brainstorming. Spoiler. If Gale had been born in the capital, he would have made a good game maker. Just something to think about. So there are ideas involving things like, booby trapping an area with supplies like food and water, driving people into an area where a bigger trap is waiting, harming offspring so you can lure the parents who are the actual target, fun stuff like that. And most fun trap of all, using people's compassion against them. A bomb that goes off twice, once where it's enough to cause damage and people come running over to help, and then a bigger, more deadly bomb goes off. Totally not foreshadowing anything that'll happen at the end of this book. Fuck you, Gale. And what do you know? Just like that, on page 186, it's time for a reading, because Katniss and Gale have so many fun conversations in this book, I'm realizing. Ugh. Okay, so like I said, page 186, it starts with Katniss saying, "That seems to be crossing some kind of line," I say. "So anything goes?" They both stare at me. Beatty with doubt, Gale with hostility. I guess there isn't a rule book for what might be unacceptable to do to another human being. Sure there is. Beatty and I have been following the same rule book President Snow used when he hijacked PETA, says Gale. Cruel, but to the point. I leave without further comment. I feel if I don't get outside immediately, I'll just go ballistic. So yeah. Another ding on the Gale red flag counter. And is it just me or are Katniss and Gale, they really are the definition of, same trauma, different responses. Then Katniss went on to go through an even worse trauma and still has a better response than Gale, because Gale is basically turning into the people that he hates, cycle of abuse and trauma. Yay! Moving on. So Katniss stormed out of special defense, and then Haymitch finds her and they go to the hospital where they are trying something new for PETA. What's the new thing they're trying, you ask? They're going to have someone from home speak to PETA. Someone preferably that he knew as a kid but wouldn't have any association with Katniss, so, he doesn't get triggered and go all cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Did I really just make that joke? I don't care, I'm keeping it in the episode. Anyway, yes, finding friends PETA knew, but this is not a very easy task since most of the people he grew up with are dead, because more people from the seam survived than people in the town, and PETA, obviously, being part of the merchant class, he would have hung out with the kids from the town more. But they do find someone, and that someone is Deli Cartwright, wonderful, bubbly ray of sunshine that we needed in this book. I love her. So her family, they owned the shoe shop in town, and her parents didn't survive the bombing, but she did, and I believe we see her brother later on in the book too, so don't quote me on that. But Deli definitely survived, obviously, because she's here. But Deli still manages to have a positive attitude, saying stuff like, it's been hard, it's been hard when Katniss asks how she's doing out of courtesy, and Deli says, oh, but everyone in here in 13 is so nice. And according to Katniss, Deli just genuinely likes people. All people, must be nice, being mentally stable and having faith in humanity. Anyway, so Deli has known PETA their whole lives. They played together as kids and sees him as like a brother figure. So other than the one time in the Capitol when, Katniss recognized Lavinia, the Avox girl, and PETA covered for her by claiming that, oh, this girl looks just like Deli Cartwright. But other than that, no memories that would trigger memories of Katniss. Oh, and there's also this moment on page 188 that holds no significance, but I want to read it because it's cute and funny. So it's like I said, it's at the top of page 188, and it's Deli saying, Katniss was always so amazing. I never dreamed she would notice me, says Deli. The way she could hunt and go to the Hob and everything, everyone admired her so. Haymitch and I both have to take a hard look at her face to double check if she's joking. To hear Deli describe it, I had next to no friends because I intimidated people by being so exceptional. Not true. I had next to no friends because I wasn't friendly. Leave it to Deli to spin me into something wonderful. Ay, I love it. Anyway, so they then head to the observation room to watch the interaction between Peta and Deli, and I'll just read this wonderful, wonderful moment. So I'll start with Deli walking into the room. She says, "Peta, it's Deli from home." "Deli?" Some of the clouds seem to clear. "Deli, it's you." "Yes," she says with obvious relief. "How do you feel?" "Awful. Where are we? What happened?" asks Peta. "Here we go," says Haymitch. "I told her to steer clear of any mention of Katniss or the capital," says Plutarch, "just to see how much of home she could conjure up." "Well, we're in District 13. We live here now," says Deli. "That's what those people have been saying, but it makes no sense. Why aren't we home?" asks Peta. Deli bites her lip. "There was an accident. I miss home badly, too. I was only just thinking about those chalk drawings we used to do on the paving stones. Yours were so wonderful. Remember when you made each one a different animal?" "Yeah, pigs and cats and things," says Peta. "You said about an accident?" I can see the sheen of sweat on Deli's face as she tries to work around the question. It was bad. No one could stay," she says haltingly. "Hang in there, girl," says Haymitch. "But I know you're going to like it here, Peta. The people have been really nice to us. There's always food and clean clothes, and school's much more interesting," says Deli. "Why hasn't my family come to see me?" asks Peta. "They can't." Deli's tearing up again. A lot of people didn't get out at 12, so we'll need to make a new life here. I'm sure they could use a good baker. Do you remember when your father used to let us make dough girls and boys?" "There was a fire," Peta says suddenly. "Yes," she whispers. 12 burned down, didn't it?" "Because of her," says Peta angrily. "Because of Katniss." He begins to pull on the restraints. Oh no, Peta, it wasn't her fault," says Deli. "Did she tell you that?" he hisses at her. "Get her out of there," says Plutarch. The door opens immediately, and Deli begins to back toward it slowly. She didn't have to. I was... Deli begins. "Because she's lying. She's a liar. You can't believe anything she says. She's some kind of mutt the capital created to use against the rest of us," Peta shouts. No, Peta, she's not," Deli tries again. "Don't trust her, Deli," says Peta in a frantic voice. "I did, and she tried to kill me. She killed my friends, my family. Don't even go near her. She's a mutt." A hand reaches through the doorway, pulls Deli out as the door swings shut, but Peta keeps yelling, "A mutt! She's a stinking mutt!" Not only does he hate me and want to kill me, he no longer believes I'm human. It was less painful being strangled. Around me, the recovery team members scribble like crazy, taking down every word. Haymitch and Plutarch grab my arms and propel me out of the room. They lean me up against a wall in the silent hallway, but I know Peta continues to scream behind the door and the glass. Prim was wrong. Peta is irretrievable. "I can't stay here anymore," I say numbly. "If you want me to be the Mockingjay, you'll have to send me away." "Where do you want to go?" asks Haymitch. "The capital. It's the only place I can think of where I have a job to do." "Can't do it," Plutarch says. "Not until all the districts are secure. The good news is, the fighting's almost over in all of them but 2. It's a tough nut to crack, though." "That's right. First the districts, next the capital, and then I hunt down Snow." "Fine," I say. "Send me to 2. So on that happy note, it's break time. We'll unpack all that when we get back. Okay, we are back. So, excuse me. We open this chapter with a description of District 2. It's a pretty large district. There are several words. Take 2. So there's a series of villages spread out across the mountains, each associated with a mine or a quarry, though many are now dedicated to housing and training peacekeepers. Oops. So many of the areas are now dedicated to housing and training peacekeepers, and at the center is an impenetrable mountain that houses the heart of the capital's military, and it's nicknamed the Nut since it's a tough nut to crack. Haha, very clever, everyone. Then we get some exposition, history of the nut. Basically, it was established after the Dark Days since they lost 13. Likely one of the primary founders being the Plint. I miss Sejanus. So, 13's having a hard time taking Chew. Not only is the rocky terrain providing an obstacle, it isn't like most of the other districts where, pretty much everyone hates the capital, and they're like, sure, rebellion, why not? Let's go. We got nothing left to lose. But some people in Chew actually like the capital because this is where the most amount of brainwashing happens. To the rest of the districts, Chew is like babied by the capital, evident by the fact that Katniss can see a lot of the District Chew rebels. They look better fed than most of the other populations. We obviously don't know the full ins and outs of life in the district and, how it works, but it does seem like there are more options as, what they can do for their jobs and careers. I mean, at least compared to 12, because in 12, your options, generally are working in the mines or being lucky enough to be born into a family with an established business you can inherit. Very few exceptions, like I think of the Goat Man or being the mayor, but yeah, not very many other things you can do. Also, doesn't sound like they get a retirement pension in 12, which is stupid. But anyway, in 2, there are people who end up as quarry and mine workers. Some get more higher up jobs in the nut, and they get a better education for it. And others become peacekeepers. And of course, there are the kids who have ambitions to volunteer for the Hunger Games, wanting to win. And, becoming a victor and gaining a life of fame and fortune. And there's a short passage that starts on the bottom of page 193 that I'll read for you guys. Of course, the people of Chew swallowed up the capital's propaganda more easily than the rest of us, embraced their ways. But for all that, at the end of the day, they were still slaves. And if that was lost on the citizens who became peacekeepers or worked in the nut, it was not lost on the stonecutters who formed the backbone of the resistance here. I mean, at the end of the day, doesn't matter how many privileges you have. If you're living in a country like Panem, you are ultimately a slave. I also like these brief details we get of Chew because it manages to humanize the people of District 2 in a way that they haven't been before, at least in the original trilogy. Ballad is a different story because we get characters like Marcus and Sejanus, but in the original trilogy, since we all get this from Katniss's point of view, we get the impression that, all the people from Chew are deeply brainwashed and they're the capital's lapdogs, but of course it's more complex than that. And there are plenty of people who are rebels committed to the cause, and it's mostly the lower class who rebel. Interesting how that works. And, Sejanus would have been so happy to know that this rebellion was happening and to know that a good part of the population in his home was fighting back too. And now I'm sad again anyway. So by the time Katniss gets there, this is what the state of things are like. All the outer villages are under rebel control. The town's divided. And of course, the nut is untouched. Katniss spends her time doing what she can to help, visiting the wounded, taping short propos, but she isn't allowed into actual combat, but is allowed into the meetings, something that never happened in 13. In a strange way, it's kind of an improvement from 13, like freer. Like, she has less of a schedule, fewer demands, and she gets to consistently be above ground and get some fresh air. She is relocated often for her safety, since she's obviously a high-ranking target. What's even better is that Katniss is able to hunt. She still has to, bring guards with her and can't wander far. And, this helps her mental health, but definitely physical as well. She feels, physically stronger. Her mind's a bit clearer. The downside to the mental clarity is being able to fully grasp the fucked upness of what Snow did to Peeta. Because, while physically they have Peeta back, mentally not so much. So, Snow still stole Peeta away from her. Yay. I mean, hell, even Boggs admits that the rescue mission had been just a little too easy. Oh yeah, by the way, Boggs is in District 2 as well, which is good. Glad there's a responsible adult who's there for Katniss. But yes, Boggs thought that the mission went too well for them. So yeah, clearly Snow wanted them to rescue Peeta, and Boggs is even sure that even if they didn't make the rescue attempt, Snow would have given Peeta back to them anyway, because, you know, molded him to be the perfect weapon to kill Katniss. Why not use it? All this shit just makes Katniss fully appreciate the real Peeta, which I'm glad, because Peeta deserves all the love and appreciation. The real Peeta, obviously, not the brainwashed version of him, because yikes. So Katniss doesn't ask for any updates on Peeta's progress, but Plutarch gives it to her anyway, because he just has to be unbearably positive, I guess. It's not like Deli. I like Deli. I like it when she's optimistic. With Plutarch, it's like, shut up. Some of the upbeat comments are things like, we've almost got him convinced you're not a mutt, Katniss, and he was allowed to feed himself pudding today. Now I'm craving pudding. Damn it, Plutarch! Anyway, so moving on, not important right now. So Haymitch is much more real with Katniss, because someone knows to be honest and not bullshit Katniss. He tells her that, Peeta's not much better, but Prim actually does come up with a solution to help Peeta that kind of works, which is a sort of reverse hijacking, which is to bring up distorted memories of Katniss and then dose him with a calming drug. And they first tried this using the tape of the two of them in the cave from their first games, when Katniss tells the story of getting Prim's goat. And if you consider extreme confusion and improvement over extreme terror, then yes, Peeta has improved. Though he was so stunned and confused that he lost the ability to speak for several hours. Oops. And when he could speak again, all he asked about was the goat. So anyway, speaking of progress, very smooth transition, Alyson. So the rebels aren't making much progress in 2, so they sent a group that Haymitch calls the Brains to help, which includes Beetee and Gale. When they get there, Gale finds Katniss at the edge of the village where she's currently staying, and she's plucking a goose that she caught, and without saying anything, sits down and helps. And we also learned that whatever Katniss catches while she's hunting, she always gives a portion to whoever's home she's staying at, since, word's gotten around that having a Mockingjay around can be hazardous to your health. Can't imagine why. Just ask the citizens of District 8. Anyway, Gale then mentions that before he left 13, he went to see Peeta, and that he, quote unquote, thought something selfish, and Katniss is like, oh, that you don't have to be jealous anymore. And Gale's like, no, that I can never compete, no matter how much pain I'm in, that you'll never get over him if he doesn't get better, blah, 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 blah. Shut up, Gale. No one cares. Fucking Gale, wasting our time with this bullshit. There's more of that said in this conversation, but I don't have the mental stability to think about it anymore, because it's just more of Gale and his bullshit. So they take the bird to dinner, then they kiss, and I'll just read it because it's sad. All right, so it's on page 198. So, despite what I feel for Peeta, this is when I accept deep down that he'll never come back to me, or I'll never go back to him. I'll stay in Chew until it falls, go to the capital and kill Snow, and then die for my troubles. And he'll die insane and hating me. So in the fading light, I shut my eyes and kiss Gale to make up for all the kisses I've withheld. And because it doesn't matter anymore, and because I'm so desperately lonely, I can't stand it. Gale's touch and taste and heat remind me at least that my body's still alive. And for the moment, it's a welcome feeling. I empty my mind and let the sensations run through my flesh, happy to lose myself. When Gale pulls away slightly, I move forward to close the gap, but I feel his hand under my chin. Katniss, he says. The instant I open my eyes, the world seems disjointed. This is not our woods or our mountains or our way. My hand automatically goes to the scar on my left temple, which I associate with confusion. Now kiss me. Bewildered, unblinking, I stand there while he leans in and presses his lips to mine briefly. He examines my face closely. What's going on in your head? I don't know, I whisper back. Then it's like kissing someone who's drunk. It doesn't count. So, at least Gale knows not to kiss someone who's drunk. So, woohoo, bare minimum achieves. Good job, Gale. Anyway, so yeah, that's sad and depressing. And Katniss, you desperately need therapy. Like even more than usual. What the fuck? Anyway. So, then we learn that Gale has kissed multiple people when they were in school. I'm not dwelling on this too much because I really don't care. And we also learn exactly when he started developing quote unquote feelings for Katniss. I say in quotes because I don't know if it's born. I don't know. It feels more like entitlement. I don't know because so the New Year's before the 74th Hunger Games, Gale and Katniss of course went to the Hall to celebrate, and good old Darius, I miss Darius, made a joke where I think like Katniss was like trading him some meat or whatever, and he's like, one of my kisses is worth all your meat or whatever, and he was just teasing. He was just teasing her. He was being Darius, but then Gale had the audacity to be jealous. And that's when he realized he quote unquote liked Katniss like that. Like what? He just didn't like the idea of anyone else, having her or whatever. Like this man had the audacity to be mad at Katniss for kissing Peeta in the games when it was literally a survival strategy. Like when he has kissed anything that breathes when they were in school. And to be clear, Gale is very straight. He was only kissing girls, but he is a definition of entitled straight cis man. Possessive much? I'd say this is worth about, at least 3 dings on the Gale red flag counter. So Katniss then goes on to say that, Darius was just joking, and Gale has the audacity to be like, oh, well, even if he wasn't, you wouldn't know. Take me and Peeta, for example. And okay, I was worried about Finnick for a minute too, but he's, on the right path again, or whatever he says. Like, bro, I know I've ranted about, Gale's unreasonable jealousy with Finnick, but yeah, fuck you, Gale. Stop being possessive. How many people did you kiss again? Yeah, you don't even know. You lost count, didn't you? Maybe you should be jealous of Finnick, and not in the way you think, because Finnick is a much better friend / older brother figure to Katniss than you will ever be. So yeah, be jealous of that. Fuck that. Another ding on the Gale red flag counter. Fuck you, Gale. Anyway, I need to move on from this before I get too angry. Where was I? Okay, so yeah, they go to a meeting to discuss the problem with the nut. I'm realizing there's so many inappropriate jokes that could be made. But we're not going to do that. Anyway, so, shit. We're getting another major Gale red flag moment. This is truly the chapter where Gale just collects red flags. Might as well add like 10 more dings to the counter while we're here. But on the bright side, we get to meet Lime, another victor, and she's leading the rebels in 2. And in the movie, she's played by the wonderful Gwendolyn Christie, a.k.a. Brianna freaking Tarth. And fun story, guys, so pause the depressing things happening in the Hunger Game and Gale's bullshit for the moment. So during the summer of 2019, I did like a brief study abroad type program where for 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks, I was in the classroom at my college just taking a summer course. It was I took a medieval lit course and a Shakespeare course, and got a bunch of extra credits, and I was able to graduate early. Actually, that was cool. But so then after the classroom portion, the next 2.5 weeks we spent in England, and it was so freaking cool. On one of the nights we had off, a bunch of us went to see this production of A Midsummer Night's Dream that Gwendolyn Christie was in. I met her. She was playing Queen Tatiana, and they did this really cool thing. So for those of you who know the plot of A Midsummer Night's Dream, basically the fairy king Oberon gets Puck to put flower juice, so everyone falls in love with the wrong person. But they switched it up. So in this show, in this production, because Gwendolyn was playing the fairy queen Tatiana, they had her be the one to put the love juice in, to order Puck to put the love juice in everyone's eye. So that was a really interesting take, and she's a gorgeous woman. Oh my god. And it was in this really cool, like, immersive theater. So, you could pay for a seat, obviously, but then you could pay to be in the pit, like how they do it at what's called the Globe Theater, where you just stand and the stage is right there. Except it was even more interactive than the Globe. We were basically part of the show. It was so cool. And like, there's like, the actors, they move you around and got to interact with all the fairies. The tech people would move us around too when set pieces had to move, so no one got run over. At one point, when like the wedding was happening toward the end and like the big platform in the center got raised and we're all standing around it, Gwendolyn's like wedding dress whacked me in the face, but I'm like, it's fine, this is fine. At one point she shoved me aside. And it was fine. It was perfectly fine. I was more than okay with her shoving me aside like that. And then it was so fun at the end. They basically like threw a dance party for everyone who was like standing in the pit, like all the fairies. They basically separated us from our friends. We ended up dancing in this big circle. They were throwing beach balls around, and it was great because while we were all distracted dancing, it gave like Gwendolyn and the other lead actors a chance to escape. But it was a really cool production, one of the best theater experiences I have ever had, and Midsummer's Dream is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays, so that made it even better. But anyway, I love Gwendolyn Christie, and she also deserved to do more in the Star Wars movies. Hot take, I still really like the sequel trilogy. You can all explode now. Okay, so where was I? We meet Lime. So, Katniss does remember Lime because, when she and Peeta were studying for the Quarter Quell, they did watch her games, but since winning, she's kept a pretty low profile and can't help but wonder what the Capitol did to her after she won, since, no victor is allowed to live peacefully after they win. Like Haymitch said in Catching Fire, there are no winners of the Hunger Games, just survivors. So, anyway, Lime gives a presentation of the nut, and everyone starts brainstorming. No one's got anything good, and there are only like a couple pages left of the chapter, so I might as well just read the conversation they have in this meeting. So it's on page 201. It starts with Lime saying, "The next person who suggests we take the entrances better have a brilliant way to do it, because you're going to be the one leading that mission." Gale, who is too restless to sit at the table for more than a few hours, has been alternating between pacing and sharing my windowsill. Early on, he seemed to accept Lime's assertion that the entrances couldn't be taken and dropped out of the conversation entirely. For the last hour or so, he's sat quietly, his brow knitted in concentration, staring at the nut through the window glass. In the silence that follows Lime's ultimatum, he speaks up. "Is it really so necessary that we take the nut, or would it be enough to disable it?" "That would be a step in the right direction," says Beatty. "What do you have in mind?" "Think of it as a wild dog den," Gale continues. "You're not going to fight your way in, so you have two choices. Trap the dogs inside or flush them out. We've tried bombing the entrances, says Lime. They're set too far inside the stone for any real damage to be done." "I wasn't thinking of that," says Gale. "I was thinking of using the mountain." Beatty rises and joins Gale at the window, peering through the ill-fitting glass. "See? Running down the sides." "Avalanche path," says Beatty. "It'd be tricky. We'd have to design the detonation sequences with great care, and once it's in motion, we couldn't hope to control it." We don't need to control it if we give up on the idea we have to possess the nut," says Gale. "Only shut it down." "So you're suggesting we start avalanches and block the entrances," says Lime. "That's it," says Gale. "Trap the enemy inside, cut off from supplies, make it impossible for them to send out their hovercrafts." While everyone considers the plan, Boggs flips through a stack of blueprints of the nut and frowns. "You risk killing everyone inside. Look at the ventilation system. It's rudimentary at best, nothing like what we have in 13. It depends entirely on pumping in air from the mountainsides. Block those vents and you'll suffocate whoever is trapped. They could still escape through the train tunnel to the square, says Beatty. Not if we blow it up, says Gale. Says Gale. His full intent becomes clear. Gale has no interest in preserving the lives of those in the nut. No interest in caging the prey for later use. This is one of his death traps. Oh, fucking Gale. Yep, he really is. He really is a game maker. Anyway, break time so I can... We'll deal with this when we get back. All right, we are back, and I know we just closed off the last chapter with a reading, so naturally I'm going to open with another one, because good shit's being said here. Don't blame me, blame Suzanne. She has the nerve to be a good writer. I'm just a mediocre podcast host. So anyway, yeah, we're going to read. The implication of what Gale is suggesting settled quietly around the room. You can see the reaction playing out on people's faces. The expressions of range from pleasure to distress, from sorrow to satisfaction. The majority of the workers are citizens from Chew, says Beatty neutrally. So what, says Gale. We'll never be able to trust them again. They should at least have the chance to surrender, says Lime. Well, that's a luxury we weren't given when they fired Bomb 12, but you're all so much cozier with the Capitol here, says Gale. By the look on Lime's face, I think she might shoot him, or at least take a swing. She'd probably have the upper hand, too, with all her training, but her anger only seems to infuriate him, and he yells, "We watched children burn to death, and there was nothing we could do." I have to close my eyes a minute as the image rips through me. It has the desired effect. I want everyone in the mountain dead. I'm about to say so, but then... I'm also a girl from District 12, not President Snow. I can't help it. I can't condemn someone to the death he's suggesting. Gale, I say, taking his arm and trying to speak in a reasonable tone. That nut's an old mine. It'd be like causing a massive coal mining accident. Surely the words are enough to make anyone from 12 think twice about the plan. But not so quick as the one that killed our fathers, he retorts. Is that everyone's problem? That our enemies might have a few hours to reflect on the fact that they're dying instead of just being blown to bits? Back in the old days, when we were nothing more than a couple kids hunting outside of 12, Gale said things like this and worse. But then they were just words. Here, put into practice, they become deeds that can never be reversed. You don't know how those District 2 people ended up in the nut, I say. They may have been coerced. They may have been held against their will. Some are our own spies. Will you kill them too? I would sacrifice a few, yes, to take the rest of them, he replies. And if I were a spy in there, I'd say, bring on the avalanches. I know he's telling the truth, that Gale would sacrifice his life in this way for the cause. No one doubts it. Perhaps we'd all do the same if we were the spies given the choice. I guess I would, but it's a cold-hearted decision to make for other people and those who love them. You said we had two choices, Boggs tell him, to trap them in or flush them out. I say we try to avalanche the mountain, but leave the train tunnel alone. People can escape into the square where we'll be waiting for them. Heavily armed, I hope, says Gale. You can be sure they'll be. Heavily armed. We'll take them prisoner, agrees Boggs. Let's bring 13 into the loop now, Beatty suggests. Okay, reading went a little longer than intended, but we're continuing with the Gale red flags. Again, like I said earlier, he's turning into the people that he hated for years. Also, Coin clearly recognizes it and exploits it. We don't outright see it, but we can assume this because earlier in the books we saw him and Coin acting all chummy. Coin recognizes a good soldier when she sees one, and him being the best friend of the Mockingjay, even better for her, because she knows Katniss is hard to control, so any edge she can get over Katniss, the better. Also, just realized something. This is very random, but so that scene in the first Captain America movie, before Steve gets a super soldier-ified? when they're at the training camp, and they're, training men with who are potential candidates to be super soldiers, and the main commander, he wants, what's his name, Hogs, to be the one, because it's like, look, he's strong, he passed every test, he's a good soldier. But Stanley Tucci's character, I forget the character's name, says, like, no, he's a bully, he's a good soldier, but I want a good man, and that good man being Steve Rogers. Yeah, basically what I'm saying, Gale is a good soldier, Pete a good man. Hope that makes sense. Or John Walker. Yeah, Gale's John Walker. He would be exactly like John Walker if he got the super soldier serum. Peter would be like Steve Rogers. But anyway, so where was I? Before, connecting Marvel to the Hunger Games. So, Gale shows several red flags when explaining his plans, and, I went on the tangent of him and Coin being besties. And the reason I thought this is because, right after where I stopped reading, on page 206, Beatty's like, okay, let's get in touch with Coin, see what she thinks. And Gale's like, she'll want to block the tunnel. Another ding on the red flag counter for me. For the record, I've completely lost track of the amount of red flags, not that I really counted anyway. But, Beatty responds to what Gale says by being like, Peter had a point in his propos. We don't want to, kill humanity off. It's worth a conversation. So, interesting thing to point out, because, Beatty is helping Gale design these weapons of mass destruction, but he's still reasonable. He's not hardcore the way Gale is. Just something I thought worth pointing out. But only a select few are invited to be part of the conversation with Coin, so Katniss and Gale are kicked out of the room, and Katniss takes Gale hunting so they can blow off some steam. When they get back, a decision is made. They're going to go on with the avalanche thing. Katniss is geared up in her Mockingjay suit with her bow and arrows, and she's, wearing an earpiece, so she'll be able to talk to Haymitch back in 13. And Gale's plan goes well. The avalanche is a success. Yay. Everyone's like, woohoo, we did it, guys. We'll get control of Chew, because, the next step is taking the capital. Victory. Yay. But Katniss is kind of spiraling. Because, this whole idea understandably triggers memories of her father's death, and we get a flashback to the day that happened. Sirens went off during their lunchtime. Katniss ran to Prim's classroom and got her just like she said she would. Then they joined the rest of the crowd as they all gather at the entrance to the mine, because obviously everyone's very anxious to see if their loved one made it. And as more groups are brought up, Katniss keeps not seeing her dad. Also, I feel like pointing out this one line on page 208. We found our mother clutching the rope that had been hastily strung up to keep the crowd back. In retrospect, I guess I should have known there was a problem right then, because why were we looking for her when the reverse should have been true? Poor Katniss and Prim, they really lost their one true parent. And okay, this isn't to say that Mrs. Everdeen is a horrible, evil person. She's not. Just maybe wasn't the most suited to be a parent, because she already had existing mental illness and was obviously traumatized from losing her best friend, and, who knows what else she's been through. So, probably needed a ton of therapy before she could be a good, stable parent. But unfortunately, she didn't have access to anything like that at the time. Anyway, so yeah, Katniss doesn't feel so good right now. Not only, being reminded of the first big traumatic experience of her life, but feeling guilty because now she's on the side causing a mining accident and condemning people to the same fate her father suffered. And since, and it's not a guaranteed thing that there'll be survivors, despite the fact that they'll leave the train tunnel open. While waiting in the town square for survivors to show up, Haymitch calls Katniss to give her an update on PETA. They showed him the unaired clip of Katniss singing The Hanging Tree, so footage that the Capitol never could have used against PETA for hijacking. And he recognizes the song because he remembers hearing Mr. Everdeen sing it one day when he came to the bakery when PETA was about 6 or 7. And remembered listening to see if the birds stopped singing, which they did. And they don't believe Katniss had been there that day, but it's the first memory related to her that hasn't triggered a meltdown from him, so big progress. And also, don't mind me crying over the fact that it's Katniss's singing voice that truly starts to help Peeta come back to his old self. You know, to her, like how he heard her singing when they were kids, and then he fell in love. I'm okay. Anyway, so Gale helps with the fighting since, there are Capitol soldiers outside the nut that need to be taken care of. And Katniss continues not to do so well. As she puts it on page 211, I don't petition to join the fighters, not that they would let me. I have no stomach for it anyway, no heat in my blood. I wish Peeta was here, the old Peeta, because he would be able to articulate why it is so wrong to be exchanging fire when any people, are trying to claw their way out of the mountain. Or is my own history making me too sensitive? Aren't we at war? Isn't this just another way to kill our enemies? I mean, is blowing the nut considered a war crime? If it's like an official military base, I don't think so. Unlike, the hospital in 8, that was a very, very serious war crime. But don't quote me on any of this. I'm not an expert by any means. Either way, Katniss, you have every right to feel the way you do. You're hella more compassionate and thoughtful than some other people. Gale. And it just occurred to me that my 2 favorite books in the series, The Hunger Games and Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, have the least amount of Gale. Funny how that works. Anyway, so sometime after midnight, Cressida attached a microphone to Katniss. She's going to give some speech to calm everyone down and encourage the Capitol loyalists to, stand down, fight's not with them, yada, yada, yada. Haymitch will feed her lines to say, which isn't a bad idea because, as we said earlier, the people of 2 are still ultimately oppressed and enslaved by the Capitol, even if they have more privileges. And just as Katniss starts the speech, the train full of survivors is coming. Yay! And, okay, long story short, survivors are wounded, a bit disoriented, rebels telling them to stand down, drop their weapons, all that stuff. Katniss then notices that one young man is staggering with a bloody cloth pressed to his face, so he's clearly not doing well. He also reminds Katniss a little too much of a burn victim from a mine accident, so naturally she throws caution to the wind and runs to help him. And then he points a gun at her. And we are almost at the end of the chapter, so you know what that means. I know this specific chapter has been, I've been reading a lot from this specific chapter, but it's not my fault. Like I said, take it up with Suzanne Collins. Tell her to be less of a talented writer. If you want me to stop reading, tell her to suck more. Oh dear. Just kidding. I love your writing, Suzanne. Don't ever change. Okay, so let's see. We're starting on page 215. Okay, so like I said, start with the man with the gun where he says, "Give me one reason I shouldn't shoot you." The rest of the world recedes. There's only me looking into the wretched eyes of the man from the nut who asked for one reason. Surely I should be able to come up with thousands, but the words that make it to my lips are, I can't. Logically, the next thing that should happen is the man pulling the trigger, but he's perplexed, trying to make sense of my words. I experience my own confusion as I realize what I've said is entirely true, and the noble impulse that carried me across the square is replaced by despair. I can't. That's the problem, isn't it? I lower my bow. We blew up your mine. You burned my district to the ground. We've got every reason to kill each other. So do it. Make the Capitol happy. I'm done killing their slaves for them. I drop my bow to the ground and give it a nudge with my boot. It slides across the stone and comes to rest at his knees. I'm not their slave, the man mutters. I am, I say. That's why I killed Cato. And he killed Thresh, and he killed Clove, and she tried to kill me. It just goes around and around. And who wins? Not us, not the districts. Always the Capitol. But I'm tired of being a piece in their games. PETA on the rooftop that night before our first Hunger Games. He understood it all before we'd even set foot in the arena. I hope he's watching now, that he remembers that night as it happened, and maybe forgives me when I die. Keep talking. Tell them about watching the mountain go down, Haymitch insists. When I saw that mountain fall tonight, I thought, they'd done it again. Got me to kill you, the people in the districts. But why did I do it? District 12 and District 2 have no fight except the one the Capitol gave us. The young man blinks at me uncomprehendingly. I sink on my knees before him, my voice low and urgent. And why are you fighting with the rebels on the rooftops? With Lime, who was your victor? With people who were your neighbors, maybe even your family? I don't know, says the man, but he doesn't take his gun off me. I rise and turn slowly in a circle, addressing the machine guns. And you up there? I come from a mining town. Since when do miners condemn other miners to that kind of death and then stand by to kill whoever manages to crawl from the rubble? Who is the enemy? Whispers Haymitch. These people, I indicate the wounded bodies on the square, are not your enemy. I whip back around to the train station. The rebels are not your enemy. We all have one enemy, and it's the Capitol. This is our chance to put an end to their power, but we need every district person to do it. The cameras are tight on me as I reach out my hands to the man, to the wounded, to the reluctant rebels across Pan Am. Please, join us. The words hang in the air. I look to the screen, hoping to see them recording some wave of reconciliation going through the crowd. Instead, I watched myself get shot on television. And that's how it ends. We're very... This is the second episode in a row where we ended up Katniss getting severely injured or almost killed in some way. But yeah. It's also interesting because this scene in the movie, instead of Katniss saying, like, we only have one enemy, the Capitol, she's saying snow. I know. I'll probably elaborate more when we're comparing the book to the movie. But yeah, like I said at the beginning of the episode, I'll link the YouTube channel of Those Forking Fangirls so you can see the episode I guest starred on. I'll also link, what did I say? Yes, I will also link the music video that I made for The Hanging Tree, my very subpar music video, and all my other usual socials. Next time we're talking about chapters 16 to 18. I believe we get more Joanna in those chapters. Do we get the wedding too? We'll find out. But yeah, if you're listening on, of course, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on so you can get updates, or you're updated as soon as I post a new episode. All my socials are in the show notes. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, if you leave a 5-star review, I will read it out loud on the show, no matter what it says. So do with that information what you will. But thank you all so much for listening. Hope you have a great day / night, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!